Did I spend far longer on this project than I anticipated? Yes. Was it worth it? I don't know. Hopefully. I think so. I'm going to run you through the instructions on this project. This is our credit cards part 2 for money management here. So in this project, we're doing mostly Google Sheets here. You can reference out to a couple videos that are in the project and things of that nature. But for the most part, we live in here. There's a couple examples in here for you. So each practice problem has an example for it, and there's also an Explore tab. I don't know whether I want to do the Explore tab first or last because it took me the longest, and it's a bittersweet victory, and I'll circle back to that in a second. So, hey, here, welcome to the project. I want you to make a copy of this thing and then save it out with your name. The video coming soon will be available once you guys get the project. It's the new meta. There are some highlighting things that I just like to call out here. So the first are just a set of formulas. So if I use a formula, I'll try and change the way it looks a little bit. It might be a little hard to see that, but essentially what I'm trying to do is just draw attention to changes that I made. I pulled this together overnight and over the past couple days, so it's not perfect, but hopefully you can follow at least to some degree. There are answer boxes I'm looking to have you guys fill in. There are some hard-coded input values, and comments are in turquoise. The coloring on the tabs are blue for instructional or examples, and orange for just your practice. So the last little bit here you can leave alone. This is just going to pull automatically from the worksheets as we see here. It's pulling from this box. So your answer will need to go here, and it will automatically pull through to my little instructions tab here, so I can take a quick peek and see whether it's right or wrong. But I'm also going to be checking to see you guys are using dynamic equations, not just static numbers. So again, I don't want to see like 4 and then 2 and then 6. I would like to see 4 plus 2 equals 6, that sort of thing. Oh man, do I want to jump right into the Explore tab? It's so exciting. I'm going to save it. Let's look at the first example here. The first example is how monthly interest is calculated. And actually, I lied. I am going to jump to the Explore tab because it has the 2 videos I want to talk about. So these 2 videos talk about the grace period and the interest calculation on credit cards. So I would say these 2 videos combined with literally a midnight call to Raul in wherever Raul was located, who helped me with a credit card question because I couldn't find it anywhere, are going to basically encompass what we need to proceed forward on this project. So by that I mean we need to know how the grace period works, and the way that it works is basically you have a month, and that month you're going to buy some stuff on your credit card. You may also make a payment on your credit card, but let's just talk about the purchases first. You make your purchases, and then at the end of the month locks off, and that's your monthly statement. Then you have a grace period. Typically, it's not required by law, but most credit cards will do this, typically about 3 weeks, 21 to 28 days, depending on who you go with. But then in that grace period, you're not charged interest so long as you pay the amount in full. So again, my strongest recommendation to you guys is if you are using a credit card, only use a credit card if you are able to make the payments in full. Basically, using it like a debit card will build your credit. This is a complete myth. I don't know who made this up, probably a troll or someone with even worse intentions, that maintaining a balance on your card helps you build credit. That's not a thing. By accruing no interest and paying in full every time, that is the absolute best you can do. And it's basically like running a debit card, and it's super easy to keep track of. As we look in this spreadsheet, you're going to see it gets pretty messy. So if you actually do run a balance, then what's going to happen is that that's going to be added on to the next statement. So basically I start with January, cool, I spent some money, and then in February, cool, I have some time to pay it off, and then oops, I didn't. Come March, that balance from January is going to hit. So I have to make a minimum monthly payment, but we'll get into that later. So that is leading us to interest calculation. The way that interest is calculated on a credit card typically is that we take the monthly daily averages, and so we take the monthly daily balance and we come up with a monthly daily average. So we take that average for all the days in the month and we multiply it by whatever the interest rate is going to be for that number of days. And I promise the video breaks it down for you, and it's also broken down in the spreadsheet here. So on this Explore tab, I'm just doing a disclaimer here. Far too much time was spent on this. I'm sure there's something broken with it. I'll figure it out and fix things as we go. I really want to encourage you guys to check out this tab, okay? Not only did I spend a ridiculous amount of time putting it together, but it's very, very interesting and allows you to do much of the manipulations. I don't know how long I looked online for it. I couldn't find a great tool, or at least a tool that like satisfied what I was looking for. What I think should exist is a really easy simulation tool for like, this is my balance, this is what would happen, this is the fee that I would incur. Like, I don't know why that's not a thing, but maybe I just didn't find it. So here I'm giving you an APR. I'm giving you a daily compound, so that means 365 days a year. I come up with a daily rate by looking at my compounding and my APR. And then I say, okay, well, I've got a grace period of 21 days. I'm going to pay a minimum payment of 2% plus interest, or $25, or the current balance if less than $25. So that's pretty typical. 2 to 3%, I'd say ballpark, is like that minimum interest percentage, or the minimum payment percentage plus the interest. So you got to keep in mind that if we're not knocking that interest off, we're never actually going to whittle the thing down, and it would just grow out of control, which I'm sure credit cards would love, but you know. The minimum, just $25 flat fee here. I'm again using these values because formulas don't like text. And now I'm going to scroll down a smidge here. This thing got bigger than I intended, so definitely some scrolling to the right here to get all the way to our minimum payment. The month is just a formula indicator to help me count things. One of the ways that I'm counting things is with SUMIF or COUNTIF functions. A lot of interesting functions in this tab, okay? So again, I implore you guys to check this tab out, just explore around. The things that I would say are the playground spaces are the purchase and payments columns, okay? Let's say I make a purchase. I spent $500 on grapes, I don't know, whatever. I bought a lot of grapes. And then I spent $200 on, I don't know, Tic Tacs, right? I'm just going on a spending spree here. So now as I look at this thing, it is calculating what my current balance is, and then this is calculating my average daily balance. And we see this is going to fluctuate pretty widely in the beginning of the month, but it starts to level out towards the end of the month, obviously, as I have more days. So again, as I started out with 0, spent 500 bucks, and then that 500 bucks is averaged over the 2 days here. So $500 one day, $0 one day, averages to be $250. And we keep doing that, and I spend some more money, and I can also knock some money off, right? If I made a payment of $100, it's going to knock it down some. So as we look at these two columns, that should give you a pretty good idea of how this interest is going to be accumulating if you do accumulate interest. This is the actual interest calculation. So this is the amount of interest that I am paying if after, the end of the month, whatever, my daily average came out to be $570.97, and again with whatever my interest rate was, 15%, blah blah blah, for the number of days in that month. So, and here we again see that COUNTIFs function. Austin, this is for you. This is for programmers and people who are interested in this stuff. I beg of you, somebody just check it out. Then I have this grace period, and so here's where we see some of the color changing. So I'm going from the thing that was within the month, so January stuff again indicated with a 1 here, to now I'm in my grace period. So this is my first 21 days of the next month. So in this 21 days, if I pay my balance off, I won't actually pay any interest. This is showing me what I will end up paying now because I haven't paid this full balance, but it's not due yet. So hey, slow down, give me some time. I pay 500 bucks here, then I pay 100 bucks here, and boom, this interest payment disappears, okay? So I know there's a lot of behind the scenes calculation stuff. You guys click in here, you can follow it as you want, but basically what this is saying is that if you make this payment, you will not pay any interest, and that is ideal. That's really what we want to be doing. But let's say I wasn't able to make that $500 payment, okay? I was only able to pay $100. Well, if we do want to check out this equation over here, this is showing us our minimum interest payment, okay? So this calculation is done for us as well using this information here. It gets a bit crazy just to make it all work, but in a nutshell, all it's doing is the greater of the interest rate plus 2% or a flat $25. So whichever of those is greater, that's what it's going to charge, and it will start charging less if the amount is less than that. So like if I only spent $20, for example, then it's only going to be able to, rack up whatever, $5 and some change. So let's say I actually did accumulate some interest here. It's just carried down right here, and now it's stacked onto my next month. So as we see here, I just ended February, and February ends with slapping that January amount onto it. Let's say I did some additional spending in February. I would see that flow through as well. So let's say I spent, I don't know, $50 on stickers or whatever I'm spending $50 on. This is hitting this value right here, and it's not hitting this because this is only for January, right? This is only January's values. And if we look at the top here, current January balance, January daily average balance, January interest, and then we start talking about February, March, April, okay? So what I tried to do for you guys is to really break down column by column what's happening here as it happens. And this is what the credit card is doing in the background. I keep on saying credit card, like credit card is like an entity in and of itself, like a corporation is a legal person, but whatever, the credit card companies. So let's talk about, I don't know, let's do something crazy, right? So let's try and break my spreadsheet. For sure you can break this thing. Let's say I paid $600, okay? $600 is an overage of $100. That $100 overage is gonna flow through from my $50 balance from what I spent over here to credit me with $50 here. Now again, this would be paid back to you immediately, and you don't have any interest or anything of that nature like accruing on it. If I scroll down here, I see I would get exactly my $50 back. I'm not going to be charged interest on money that I've paid over. So just as an example here, I did some troubleshooting. Man, lots of troubleshooting. I don't even want to think about it. So you can continue playing around with the spreadsheet. Just know that the goal here is just to give you an idea of like what's happening sort of month to month. So I cut it off after 4 months. Otherwise, I'd just be kind of iterating through a bunch more. There's not a whole lot else that would change. One interesting thing I do want to call out though is if we do want to scoot to the right here, and it gets a little bit wonky if you put in negative values because you're never actually going to overpay on the credit card unless they like issued you a big refund or something like that. So let's go ahead and say, I don't know, we spent another $1,000 here, right? So we'll level this stuff off. Sure, we had that 1 month overage credit. I don't know, something happened there, but ultimately this is more realistic, right? So with these realistic numbers, you can look at what the minimum payments would be for them. And let's just clear everything out. So if we go, just hold down shift and click, and then I'm gonna hit delete. So I get rid of all those values. I'm starting fresh. Let's just start at the basic view, right? If I don't wanna look at anything crazy, let's just say I bought something for $500 on day one. What is the interest gonna be at the end of the month? $637. Let's just keep that in mind. What if instead of buying it on the 1st, I bought it on the 20th, $500? Hey, that $6 is now only $2. Again, the time value of money. This is compounding over the month, right? So this whole chunk is all just zero, 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 average monthly balance weighing in here. And then once I actually make my payment, boom, then I start hitting that $500 daily balance there. And so my average for the month is much, much lower. So I end up paying much less in interest. So this is a trick you guys can do. You can make a payment, or excuse me, make a purchase towards the end of the month. If you know like, oh, I just need it in January, right? And again, we should be paying this off in full every time, but worst case scenario, whatever, we can't 1 month, right? Making a purchase at the end of the month is more advantageous than making it in the beginning of the month. One other thing to call out here, we lose this grace period as soon as we don't pay our balance in full, and it takes typically 2 to 6 payments in full on time just to get the grace period back. So what that means is even though I'm paying my monthly bill or whatever in full after, I'm still paying interest on that amount, all because I didn't pay in full 1 month, and that will lag 2 to 6 months, sometimes longer, but I think for the most part it's 2 to 6 months. that is this tab. This is my masterpiece. Let's go to example 1. Example 1 has us walking through how monthly interest is calculated. And so when we look at this thing, I'm basically saying here's an interest rate, daily compounding, here's my greater of whatever and whatever, and now I want to turn this into a daily rate. I do this by simply taking my APR and dividing it by my compounding period. So here again, 365 for daily. I do all that stuff, and here are my purchases, okay? So I have my purchases in my little calendar here going from the beginning of the month to the end of the month. I am also tracking my payments, of which I made none, but it would be interesting for me to insert a payment here and see everything change because I did a dynamic equation for everything. That's absolutely what we want to do. So I talk about the current balance. So the current balance is just going to be the sum of all these things. I did it as the previous one plus any new purchases minus any payments. So as you look down to the next cell here, it changes between this one and this one. And this is the formula that I'm then going to drag down. It says, hey, take the last one, add your new stuff, take out your payments. Okie dokie. So that's the formula going down here as we just drag it to the bottom, or you can just double click in the bottom right here to automatically do it for you. Another way of doing this is you can talk about the balance per day. So here I want to first figure out the number of days. So I look at how do I get a day count. I really wish Google Sheets would count for me. Oh, thanks Google Sheets. Even though you're the worst, literally the worst. I love Excel. Google Sheets, I wish I could banish you, but you're free, so it is what it is. Average here, so now we're looking at the sum of all of these values. So again, all I did here is I took this and I divided by the number of days. So here's the balance on that day divided by the number of days. I then take all of those things and sum them up. So if you want to do it that way, that's great. If you want to think about it as, okay, here's my day count, let's just sum all of the actual daily balances and then do the division that way, totally fine as well. I think I probably would opt for this way, but first method is fine too. So now we need to find that daily interest rate. So basically what we're doing is we're taking that calculation we did earlier. I'm just dragging it down here to keep it all in one area. Number of days in a month, average on that day, and then we get our interest. Boom. Multiply those three things together. That's it. So that's how interest is calculated for the month. Thanks, meme baby. We did it. Here's a practice problem for you guys. It says, please calculate the monthly interest. Following transactions: buy a calculator, buy 2 piñatas, buy an autograph from an Elvis Presley impersonator. Example 2 here, we now go through finding our minimum monthly payment calculation. So this is going to be one of two things. It's kind of one of three things. So it's going to be the greater of 3% plus interest, or $30, or the current balance if it's less than, why does that say 20? It should say, I don't know which I did here. Let's see. I think I did 20 across the board. Boom, boom. Yep, 20 used twice. Typo here. Did I make the error? Oh man. On the spot recording. This is real life, folks. Let's see. I did it with a flat 20 bucks, not 30. So this is the other spot. I will update to 20. There we go. Okay, so this one takes us through the payments and the purchases here and here. Gives me my daily balance, so we do have a little payment coming through here. And so the first thing I want to figure out is what the max is going to be for that interest. So I want to first figure out exactly what I did on the last one, which is that I'm going to find my, daily average, multiply it by the number of days times the interest rate daily. So I do all that same stuff we did on the last one here. Boom, 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 I get my interest rate. And then I'm saying, let's talk about what 3% of the balance would be. Well, here it's just going to be, again, 0.03 times whatever the balance is. So here for my balance, I'm just choosing the last value here. So again, tracking my changes as I go through the month. Then I've got option 2, which says I can go flat $20. And then I have option 3, which is just going to be the balance if the balance is less than 20. Balance is 603.85. That is not less than 20. Cool. So now I do the max of those things. I feel like making Excel do it for me. Oh, I wish I had Excel. Google Sheets doing it for me. 21.85 or 20, and it tells me it's 21.85. Now again, I want to make sure I put that in my answer box. Easiest way to do this is just click your answer box, hit equals, and then click the thing you want, right? That'll set up our equation to link right out to where it's going to be. If you land here exactly like I did, cool. If not, that's totally fine. Then we have you guys doing the practice problem. So again, here you're calculating your own. $300 couch. We got 5 mittens, $20 a piece. And then we have a trip to Mathland. Man, I wish I could go to Mathland. Example 3 here. I'm trying to give you guys like the point is not to just pay your minimum monthly payments for credit cards. If there's one thing you take away from this class, besides my amazing jokes, is please do not just pay your minimum credit card payment. You will pay so much more than you need to. So many people do this. I can't tell you how many people do this. And sometimes it's unavoidable, but really we want to do our absolute best to avoid it. So here it runs through an example, very similar to the previous two. The only difference is now I'm going to track each item explicitly here. This is overkill. You don't need to track it this much, but I just want to show you guys. Beginning of the month balance, hey, what I bought, my prepayment balance, any interest that's accumulated, the payment that I make, and then the end of the month. This first month is unique because that's when I start my thing. Then I'm just going to say, hey, the beginning of the month value was the end of last month's value. And then I say, okay, well, what did I purchase? No new purchases. What's my prepayment balance? Prepayment balance is going to be with the interest tacked on. So we're going to need to calculate our interest. Our interest, is just going to be that daily rate. So here we adjusted to do monthly by multiplying by 30. So in this example, we're doing a simplified version, looking at it by month. And so I just said, call all of our months 30 days. I know that's not true, like don't tell February, but simplify this thing just to make it easy for us. And then I'm saying, okay, let's talk about what my payment's going to be. Here's a formula. The formula is using an if statement. The if statement says, if the first thing is true, if D12 is actually less than or equal to 15, then I'm going to do D12, and if not, I'm going to do the max of these two things. These two things being my current balance times the interest rate that I've got, or it's just going to be that flat $15. I'm actually going to change, I'll just leave it. No, I should do it. I'm going to do a live change here. So when we say we've got, I don't know why I just did that. That was silly. So my payment here, instead of saying it's going to be less than or equal to 15, I really should say less than or equal to, and then use this D7 value. I want to keep it at that one position though, so I'm going to lock it. Again, I'm going to do F4, and that's a money sign in front of both the D and the 7. So now that I've made a change to this formula, I want to change all the ones below. So I'm going to highlight all of them by clicking Control Shift and then clicking down. I'm going to delete them because Google Sheets is super annoying and it doesn't let you just double click to drag it down like Excel would. And so here we go, we're dragging this down, same exact thing, right? If I do like Control Z, you see that nothing has changed because, oops, I don't know why I just opened 2 additional tabs because I can't hit the right button. Because we just did the exact same thing, just now it's dynamic rather than static. So kudos for us. So now we look at this thing and we look at, okay, well, at the end of the month, I'm going to subtract off whatever my payment is from my prepayment balance. And now here's my new end of month balance. Let's just let this sink in for a minute. We just paid just over $5 on the actual principal amount with a $22.50 payment. Okay. So like basically 75% of that payment just went to interest. It's crazy. Like, let's actually look at it, right? Equals this thing over my payment. Boom. What is that? Oh, Mr. G, you said 75%. It's actually 76, 71. Pretty close. So, crazy amounts of interest that you're paying. It'll eventually level off where you're paying more principal than interest, but it takes a long time. Like, look at us just whittling our way down here. So, I then want to say, what's my original price? That was $1,000. What are my total payments? That's the sum of all these payments here. And what's the difference, right? What's this number minus that one? $1,700, right? Over $1,700 that I ended up paying just for this $1,000 item. I paid more in interest than the item was originally worth itself. And how long does it take me to pay this thing off? I started in October of 2020. I paid it off in May of 2034. 14 years later, basically, right? Not quite, but pretty close. So 13 and some change. So just imagine, like, when you were entering high school, right? 13 years old, or 14, now somewhere around there, ballpark. That's how long it would take to pay off this if you're just paying the minimum monthly balance. Insane. That's this guy trying to put out this fire with his little, I don't know, bowl of water there. Practice problem for you. I just changed it around a little bit. I said, hey, you bought Lil Sebastian, sweet $1,200 pony deal, and take it away from there, just using slightly different values. But it'll be very interesting to see what you find. I hope you guys like this project. I hope you guys spend some time on this Explore tab. I really made it for you guys so you're able to play around with your own situations and whatever you want to sort of simulate to get an idea of how credit cards work. Really pay attention to these first two columns. And yeah, enjoy the project.